Hey y'all, it's Megan, and in this video, I am sewing up this Sydney pattern. I'm doing the skort option in this video. If you want to see the video tutorial on sewing the shorties, then I will link it down below. The first step is going to be to sew your waistband. You're going to take your main front and back waistband pieces and put them right sides together, and you're going to sew them together on each side using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then you're going to repeat those steps with your lining waistband pieces. So putting the front lining waistbands right sides together and sewing them with a 1/2 inch seam allowance on each side. Then we need to sew the two waistband pieces together. So you are going to align them so they are right sides together and pin them together along the top waist edge. And I do like to nest the seams, so I press one seam of the main waistband toward the back and the lining waistband seam toward the front so that they lay flat. And you're going to stitch them together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. You can add some clear elastic to this seam if your fabric doesn't have great recovery. Then I like to understitch this seam, so I'm going to open it up and I'm going to press the seam toward the lining, and then using a stretch stitch, I'm going to edge stitch, catching that seam under so that it doesn't pop out while your little one is wearing it. You could also top stitch if you'd like, or the lining waistband is shorter than the main, so it should roll to the wrong side, but I like to do this just in case. Make sure that you are using a stretch stitch here, so your cover stitch or any stretch stitch on your sewing machine. Then you're going to press the lining waistband toward the wrong side. You can baste the bottom edges together if you like and just set it aside. Take your front skirt and put it right sides together with your back skirt, and you are going to pin them together at each side from the top of the waist to the hem. And then you are going to stitch them together, creating those side seams, and you are using a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. And I like to press the seam toward the back when I'm done. Next, you're going to hem the bottom of your skirt. So we're going to press a 1/2 inch toward the wrong side all along the bottom, and then use a stretch stitch to hem it in place. If you're having trouble pressing that 1/2 inch, you could run a basting stitch a 1/2 inch from the raw edge and then use that as a guide to press the hem toward the wrong side, and then you just remove the basting stitch after you're done hemming. It can help hem along those curved edges. Then you can go ahead and set the skirt piece aside while we work on these shorties. If you're adding the pocket, you are going to press the top edge of the pocket a 1/2 inch toward the wrong side and then hem that in place, and repeat on the other pocket piece if you are adding two pockets. Then you're going to attach the pocket to the side panel. So lay your side panel out flat with the right side up and align that pocket piece on top, matching the notches and raw edges, and base the pocket in place along the three sides about 1/8 inch from the edge, and repeat it with the other pocket and side panel. Now you're going to sew the side panel to one front leg, so with right sides together, matching the notches and the raw edges. Sew the side panel to one front leg from the top of the waist to the bottom of the pocket, and you're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance here. Then you can press that seam toward the front leg and top stitch in place if you would like. Next, you are going to attach a back leg piece to the side panel. So same thing with the right sides of the side panel to the right sides of a back leg. You are going to match those notches and raw edges and stitch the two together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Again, pressing that seam toward the back leg and top stitching if you'd like. And then you're going to repeat all those steps with the other side panel and front and back leg pieces. Then I like to create a memory press along the bottom hem of each leg by pressing a 1/2 inch toward the wrong side. This just makes it easier to hem the leg later. Then we're going to sew the inseam. So you're going to take your front and back leg and you're going to put them right sides together, and you are aligning them from the crotch to the hem, and you are going to stitch the two together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance, and then again repeat on the other leg. Next, you're going to sew the crotch seam. So I have one leg inside out and one leg right side out. I'm going to put the right side out leg inside the other so that they are right sides together. And I'm going to pin them together along the inseam and then all along the crotch curve from the top of the back waistband to the top of the front waistband. And once I have them all pinned together, then I am going to sew that seam using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Next, you're going to hem the legs of the shorties. So you're repressing that 1/2 inch memory press up and then edge stitching it in place using your favorite stretch stitch or your cover stitch machine. And you're repeating this on both legs. Then we need to baste the skort to the shorties. So I like to quarter both the waist of the shorties and the skirt, and then put the shorties inside the skirt so right sides are facing up on both. And you're going to baste them together 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch from the top so that you are treating them as one piece. Then go ahead and re-quarter the waistline and your waistband. And you are going to pin the waistband right sides together with your skort. The seam of the waistband should match the seam on the skirt. And then the waistband shouldn't have to stretch much to fit since the shorties already has so much negative ease here. It just should stretch just a little bit. And you're using a 1/2 inch seam allowance to sew the waistband to the skirt. And then once it's sewn, you are complete. You can pull the waistband away from the skirt and it's all done. As always, if you have any questions, you can leave them down below and I will try to answer them. If you make a Sydney, please post it in our Facebook group and tag me on Instagram. I love to see them at Made for Mermaids, hashtag Made for Mermaids Patterns, hashtag Sydney Pattern.